What's going on, gentlemen? I thought I would do a quick video on the 2 leak detectors that I use, and I've used a lot over the years. They do make the cheap ones, you know, larger companies, truck stocking a vehicle with machines and recovery machines and vacuum pumps and tanks and refrigerant parts and all that. You know, typically you kind of go for a lesser expensive. You try to find something that's reliable, but a little less expensive, especially if, you know, we've got 14 service vans. So, you know, buying those real expensive like the H10 and then those new field piece leak detectors, which are good leak detectors, Stratus, you start getting up, you know, $600, $700, $800, you know. And I've thought about getting one of the what's that, AccuTrack is what it's called, I believe. It's that sound, picks up the sound of the refrigerant. I forget what they call that, but anyway, I've watched some videos on that and I've looked at them a couple of times. I may get one down the road just to try it out. I don't know, they're very expensive, but I've seen people use them, and it's not picking up refrigerant, it's listening. You know, you probably need to spray your coil down a little bit, but it's listening to the sound coming through the hole. Ultrasonic, that's what it is. And you get close to that leak, you just point it at it and that thing will start making that noise. You can point it away, you can be outside, the wind doesn't affect it. It's picking up the frequency of the sound coming through the oil or anything you spray down that coil with, and those things work good, especially outside. But they're high dollar, and maybe one day, I don't know. But the 2 leak detectors that I use, I have an H10, which I've only had this for a few years now, and then I have a CPS leak seeker. I've used this probably for 12 to 13 years, not this particular one. This is only the second one. The first one lasted me probably, gosh, nine years or so before it quit, and the pump finally went out on it. And it was not long after I got this, so luckily I had that. Other than that, this was the only one I had I kept with me, but now I keep 2. I got another one of these because I've just found this thing to be, for the price, it's in that $200 price range, maybe $220 to $180, depends on where you get it. If your supplier gives you a little bit of a discount, kind of things like that. But it's worth the money, that little bit of money. I found it to be really reliable. Gives you your red lights across the top, your signal strength on how your leak is, a low, medium, and a high, or low, medium, and small, large, medium, small leak. So your small leak is going to be your higher sensitivity. If your battery's weak, this thing will come on, just light up all the way across. These kind of hone you in. Then you can go down here to your large, medium, and small. Yeah, the guys with the trucks are out playing today. And this will actually give you more of a pinpoint. I typically will start in medium up here most of the time, or small. If I've got a large leak, well, that's a blowout. You put enough nitrogen in it, you're going to hear it anyway. But this has been a reliable leak detector. The difference between these is you have to kind of have your technique down. The H10 is probably the best one on the market in my opinion. But what you have to remember about the H10, I like it because it's rechargeable. It holds a charge. And if you're lucky enough to have an outlet in your attic or wherever you're at in your crawl space, you can just plug the thing in, so you don't really have to worry about batteries with this. It holds a charge for a pretty long time. But you can do an auto on it or a manual calibration, depends on how you want to set it up. I typically leave it in auto most of the time and set it on small. Sometimes I will use the manual, and you have to kind of dial it in, and we'll go through that in a minute. The sensor is here, and that's what you have to remember about these. The sensor is here, and you have this long hose, so it's going to pump through this hose before it gets to the sensor, so it doesn't react immediately when you find a leak. It'll pretty quickly, but you can, if you're moving too fast, you can't be like going down the coil like this and let me find my leak. You know, you want to kind of move at a kind of, not a snail's pace, but you kind of want to stay around and do things in a, you know, proper manner, because it has to pump that. There's a filter in the tip. You've got a little red ball in it, so you can test your vacuum. Just put your finger on here. I'll show you that in a minute. But it has to pull that refrigerant through this hose, and you see how long the hose is. And they do make extensions for these. Mine's in my toolbox, but the wand extension. But it has to pump it through this hose, then it gets to the sensor and gives you your reaction. So a lot of the wand style leak detectors, your sensor is in the tip, like this one. So if I was to unscrew this, take it off, the sensor is in the tip right there. And you can get replacement sensors. They're fairly well, they're not cheap, but they're fairly inexpensive. Get a couple of extra sensors. This is still the original one, and this one's about 2 years old. Still works fine. Then they give you replacement little filter discs that you'll take out of here and slide around, or slide in there to make sure you don't get any moisture sucked into your sensor. And another thing you have to be careful of with these, I see people on YouTube or in person doing leak searches, and the coil's wet and they're just sticking the thing all down in there and poking it and sticking it. You get a drop of water in that thing and you're done. So you got to dry it out, clean it out, because it will go crazy. Any of these leak detectors, you get water in the tip, stop up the tip, get moisture in there, it's going to go off. So you want to kind of keep your distance. Be careful if your coil's wet. You got water droplets everywhere. But I've seen guys are sticking them down in there by the drain pan and poking them and sticking them in the coil. And the coil is going to have water in between the fins if they were running the system, or if you just de-iced it, whatever you're doing. So you really want to kind of keep your distance. Don't make contact, but you get fairly close. But because the sensor's in the tip, it's going to give you a reaction pretty quickly. And this one has always been a good one. Like I said, it's the CPS Leak Seeker. You make a Leak Seeker 1 and a Leak Seeker 2. It's been reliable for me. You try what you try, use what you use, but you have to trust it. You have to be confident in what you're using and that it's working for you properly. And this thing has stood the test of time and done me right for 12 years now, and it will always be on my truck, along with this. I don't always break this out. Sometimes, a lot of the times I do, but this one probably half the time. And it was the only thing I had for a long time. Probably for 11 or 12 till I got this about 3 years ago. This was the only leak detector I used, and it never failed me. So that's a good leak detector, CPS Leak Seeker. And there's other models. That Yellow Jacket AccuProbe, I found that to be kind of junky. The older Field Piece model, those things didn't work very well either. And some of the cheaper ones, they work, but you have to know almost know where the leak is and put the thing right on top of it before it'll start going off. It wouldn't give you any kind of a notification if you were within an inch or two of it. You had to get right on top of it, and this is the one thing that has always worked well for me. So I've got a coil here. It's the one in the other day's video, the condo we did. We pulled the coil out of the air handler in that closet, and this has got pretty much a blowout leak in it. It's a very large leak. It won't hold pressure very long. So I have the tank here just with the vapor hooked up, and I have the line pressurized at just 5 psi. If I put it up a lot higher than that, you'll hear this thing hiss. So I just want some free vapor in there. I don't want any pressure behind it. I want it as low as possible to see how accurate these things are. And then I just came over here and made some connections and put an access fitting here, and then put this piece back on it and brazed it shut. I did this with, I actually did this with map gas because I don't keep torches on my pickup, because I work out of a pickup, not a service van. So typically when I'm doing something like this, I'm either meeting another technician there, he's helping me, or I'm just there to help him, whether we're getting it up in an attic or something like that. So there's always everything I need is usually on site with the service van that's meeting me there. But I just did this to get the thing sealed, and 5 psi. I'm going to go ahead and release what's in the hose into this coil, and the leak is somewhere right in here. I may turn up just a little bit of, so there, you can hear it. It's a pretty substantial leak, and it's an aluminum coil. And the other part of this video is showing you how to braze these coils. and I'll go over the information why we do that in some cases, and but I'll give you a little quick video on doing aluminum brazing on one of these coils. So I'm going to turn that pressure off. I'm going to let this thing leak down to almost zero. Let it leak out of there as well. And we're going to go over these two leak detectors, and you can form your opinion on it. So that thing has now gotten quiet. And we're sitting on about, I've opened that valve back up. So we're sitting on 0 psi in that coil right now. My valve is closed off over here. So we're just between this hose and this coil, we're sitting on 0 psi. And we'll start with the leak seeker. CPS has a warm-up period. Just let it warm up. And then when it warms up, it's kind of like that. You've got to wait for the H10 when you turn it on to calibrate itself as well. Eventually your chirps will kind of get into a rhythm, and then you'll start doing your leak search. So let this thing warm up. It'll start beeping when it's ready. There we go. So we're going to put it on medium. Hold the button down. You'll see the light change. Now we're on medium, small. Then it's going to go through your bottom lights here. But we're going to go back up here and go back to medium. It has a reset. So once you pick up a leak, you can hit that button and reset. You can hold the button and turn the sound off. 2 clicks. Turn it back on. So if you get irritated with having to listen to it while you're looking for a leak, problem is with that, you've got to pay attention to your light. So let's see what it does with 0 psi. Reset it. That's what it does when it finds a leak. Hit your button, reset it. Keep in mind we're on 0 psi on this coil. And there we have. Hit the button, reset it. Nothing over here. You may pick up a little stray gas because of the size of that leak. So this has always been a good leak detector for me. If you get water in the tip, it will give you a false positive. Back over here, where that leak is, it goes off again. Let it recalibrate. So it has always been a good leak detector. I've enjoyed it. Now we're going to put a little gas in it. If You can hear the leak. So this has always been a good leak detector. It's a good backup. It's reliable. You can trust it. Now I gotta let that air leak out of there. The gas that's in there leak out. And then we're gonna do this H10 real quick. So we're gonna turn this on. And hold the wand away. Let it get some fresh air and calibrate. I've got it on auto mode. I'm holding it over to my left. Let it calibrate to fresh air. And it'll slow down. Then it'll kind of get into that rhythm. A little bit of a delay because it has to pull that through the hose. But remember, there's 0 psi. Well, I don't have the gauges hooked up. Actually, if you can see, I backed the Schrader core out on top of everything to release all the pressure in this thing, and it still will pick up that leak with no pressure behind it. So that just gives you an idea of how well the H10 works. There's no pressure in this coil at all, but it will still. So imagine if you got one that's sitting there at 30, 40 psi, and it's pumping that refrigerant out. You're going to get an even stronger reading. And the H10 does come with a test bottle where you can test it. I think this test bottle is set for like 0.1 ounce or something like that a year of a leak. It's a little bottle, has some refrigerant in it, and a tiny itty bitty orifice in the top of it. So you can use that to test. It's a different sound. You have to get adjusted to it. I mean, 0 psi on this coil. And that thing goes off nice and strong. And that's kind of the ultimate test, in my opinion. You're picking up a leak on a unit that's completely empty, basically. There's no, you can see I've got that Schrader core backed out. There's no pressure in this coil right now, just vapor. And we're picking up that leak. So these are the 2 leak detectors that I use. And a quick thing I was going to show you, there's a little red ball on the bottom of this right there. So if you need to test your pump, you just put your finger on it right there, and that thing will start pulling a vacuum, and you'll see that ball pop up, and that lets you know your pump. Give it a few more seconds, let it get a strong vacuum on it. And you'll see that ball shoot up in the air. That just lets you know that your pump turn it up on a higher. Yeah, so you see that ball popping up. So it's just a way to test the pump on it. Make sure it's still working. Read the instructions on it for dialing in, for your manual, things like that. But these are the 2 leak detectors I use. This one's probably the best thing around. It's kind of stood the test of time. There are a lot of good leak detectors out there, but they're expensive. I mean, some of them even cost more than the H10 does. I think I got a pretty good deal on this. I think I only paid about $450 for this one. But now we're going to repair that leak real quick. I'm going to show you how to do that and why we do it. Alright guys, we're going to do a quick aluminum braze leak repair. It's in this U-bin right here. You can see that. Pretty nasty leak right there. So we're going to let this pressure back out of this thing. I only put a few PSI in it, but we're going to do a quick repair. We did a lot of this for the pandemic. Coils were hard to come by during that time. Everybody knows about all that stuff that was going on, especially Linux, Jesus Christ. But train, we do train equipment, aluminum coils, you know, waiting months to get a coil. So if it was something we could do a repair on and get the unit up and running, and try to get that system going for the homeowner until we could get the coil, hoping it was in a U-bin that was accessible where we could get to it. Use the AL822 aluminum. You gotta be careful with these. When you're done brazing, you need to take something and pinch off the end so your flux doesn't fall back. You slide it back in the container, the flux comes out of it. So the flux is internal to this rod. And then I simply just use MAP gas. Like I said, we had a lot of train coils between the GAM air handlers and the TAM air handlers, and some of the case coils, the aluminum brazing at the factory, I'm guessing, was the issue. They gave us some kind of story on that with the coated coils. They couldn't turn it up real hot, and then they had to, well, you see some of the train coated coils, the coating now is about 1.5 inches to 2 inches back, because they said when they were coating it all the way to the edge that the heat process was causing some kind of reaction there. So that now those new ones have about 1.5 inches, but I've found those leaking. And I know some people have had problems, some haven't, but I mean, we documented every coil we found. You know, we videoed every leak for train, and during about a 4-year period, we had over 100 evaporator coils that sprung leaks in these U-bins. Every one of them's documented. Every video was taken recording each leak with the model number and serial number of the unit in the same shot, and it was all sent to train to let them know about their issue. It's gotten better, but I mean, we do a large volume of train equipment. I mean, from pretty much from May to October or September, you know, we've got 4 install crews a day going. So we're putting in, you know, 20 units a week, in some cases 15. But we put a lot of these in, a lot of heat pumps. But yeah, we've got over 100 of these coils documented, model, serial number, video leaks, and all that stuff. So it was a problem. Maybe some people didn't have as much of a problem depending on the volume of equipment, but we did. So typically when you want to have a leak on one of these, you can get in there with a wire brush, and you're going to clean it up real good. And I just use MAP gas and an aluminum rod, and I've done quite a few of these repairs. And like I said, if it's out of warranty and it's accessible like this, and you can do that repair, you obviously be positive you don't have any leaks anywhere else in your system. But aluminum repairs can be made in accessible locations. but we did a lot of them on warranty coils, just because there was a time there where it was just taking a while to, 4 or 5 months in some cases to get a coil at 21442. The COL 21442. We replaced a lot of those. But anyway, get that area cleaned up real good, and then I just use MAP gas. Torches are going to be too hot. I mean, you have to turn your heat down to set your torches on like 1 and 10, and even then, if you've got too much of a pencil point, you'll melt right through that aluminum. So I got where I started doing it with MAP gas. If I can get the thing to open up, we'll see. There we go. So I'm gonna see if I can fix this one. Get this tank where it sits up. And then I guess it doesn't really matter too much, but it just seems like it's just the right heat. Well, this tank's about empty, I think. I need to get another tank. Then I've got some spray over there that's boiling off. That's not a leak. This tank is almost empty. There you go. You see it filling in now. So there you go. Quick braze repair. Like I said, if you see that right there on that flux, you want to pinch the end of it off or it'll all fall out if you try to stick it back down into the container. So I'm gonna lay it down real easy, but you can see right there that you can, and that's what it should look like. You see this one? That's what it should look like coming from the factory. But you see all these deep, it's just they're not brazing these things in solid, and then you're having problems, and then you get leaks, and it's just it's not the material so much as it is how they're brazing these fittings in. Some look more, see how solid these two look right here? See that one right there, and then this one here compared to these, see how deep and shallow those are? They're just not making good braze fittings, and they're not looking at these things, and they're just sending them out the door. Something they just have to work on. But this is an older coil. I'm sure some of this stuff's been tuned up since then. But yeah, we have well over 100 train evaporator coils that we've got video documentation on, because they wanted a recording and a photograph of each leak and the model and serial number to that unit, kind of in the same frame. Record the leak, then go to the door model and serial number, and we've got 2 pages of coils, 3 pages actually of coils and that were leaking, documented the location, homeowner, all that stuff. So they know they had a problem, but they're working on it, and I think it's pretty much been straightened out. But anyway, guys, the train's coming. I've got to cut some grass, so appreciate you guys watching the video. Like, subscribe. But yeah, aluminum braze repairs really aren't that bad. Get you a MAP gas, get you a handle. I use the hose handle because I can kind of get in there and maneuver better a little bit, but it's just the right heat that you can heat that thing up and fill that thing in. And just to double check it real quick, we're going to put some pressure on it. See that right there? Got about 127 psi. A while ago it wouldn't hold a single thing, and no bubbles. So it can be done, but before you do it, you need to make sure that's not the only leak. See how bad that one is? See how shallow that is in there? It's just that would be another leak that would happen if we'd have brazed this. And typically while I'm doing this, if I see something somewhere else that's suspect, I'm probably going to hit that one too, fill it in, and I don't want to come back, especially for a repair. So anyway, guys, like, subscribe, appreciate you watching, and see you on the next side. See you next time. Have a good one.